This is Abnormal Entertainment.
2, 3, 4.
Walked into the tunnel just to find the light. Hunted for old demons, looking for a fight. Looked up at the stars, seemed to go forever. There must be a way, it all fits together. Fell into the quicksand, held on to the vines. Never could quite color, stay within the lines. Feels like I have wings, I can fly wherever. This is just a way, it all fits together. Finally saw the world through rose-colored glasses. Gonna share my journey to small and large masses. Give up on my life, no sir, me never. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together. This is how I put it together.
Hi everybody, this is Daniel Garza, and welcome to another episode of Put It Together. I'd like to start as usual, thanking my producer, Mr. Kevin Morris, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Inviting everybody to join us at abnormalentertainment.com, where you can find all the shows on the network. Go check it out, there's something for everybody. I'd like to also invite you to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, where you can find me at Little Mexican, LILMESICAN, or look for Daniel G. Garza. Please check us out at Put It Together podcast page on Facebook, where you find all the shows that I've done, all the episodes, plus the intro music to every episode. So if you liked one of the songs, you'll find the video on there. If you'd like to join us at Little Mexican Productions, we also have our show Zodiacs with Daniel and Wayne. It's every other Monday, 7 p.m. on Facebook Live. So go check the page for Zodiacs with Daniel and Wayne, like it, check the event calendar, and share that with your friends, and you can get your horoscopes plus a card reading if you log in and check in with us. We'd love to have you as an audience member also. So if you're in the Orange County area, please let us know and come over and join us for a live taping. Today, I am excited to get started. I have, I feel like you're an old friend now. I feel like I've known you for a while.
Seems like it,
right?
Yeah.
Eric Odgear.
That's
How you doing, sir?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Now you, I can actually call sir. First of all, you're a former military, and we'll get into that. So thank you for everything that you did, everything you do, for your service. We really appreciate it.
No problem. It's the sport that matters.
And you're a project manager. You've also funded your own company. We'll get into all the details of that in a second. But Eric and I met in an odd way.
Completely by chance.
Yeah, it's one of those encounters that you just kind of go,
Yeah.
I was in Houston. If everybody that follows me knows, I was raised in Texas. Anyway, I was in Houston visiting family. We're staying at, I forget what.
I don't remember the name of the hotel, but I remember the name of the restaurant because I was staying at the Westin.
Yeah.
And I was looking for a place to eat that night because it was like the night before I was going up to Seattle for Christmas. It was like the 23rd or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, this place looks good. The restaurant was called The Pearl, and it was like Cajun-style food.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll walk over there. And yeah, we sat at the bar, and then halfway through my meal, you showed up.
Yeah, so, it's the old Sam Houston Hotel, for anybody that remembers it. It has a new micro name or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway. But if anybody from the Pearl Bar is listening, I miss those fish tacos. Those were awesome. So yeah, we were staying there. Christian wasn't feeling well, so I come downstairs to have dinner because I had those fish tacos like 3 times while we were there. And Eric was sitting there, and we were the only two other than the people working. So I was like, hey, and we started talking. I ended up doing a reading for you before you left.
Yeah, that's right.
And I was like, hey, when you get back to Cali, let's have you on my show.
Yep, we did the whole business card exchange.
Yes, very very cliched bar at a hotel thing. We'll be buds forever. Yay!
Business card. Yep.
But I was pretty impressed with you. You seem to have a very full story, although, if I may say, you're only 26 years old, and I was like, dude, I'm like 20 years older than you. But let's get started, because I don't want to waste more time. Tell us how you put it together.
Okay, well, it's hard to know where to start, but I guess I could start with, briefly, I'm born in Boston, or Framingham, for those of you who actually know where that is. I don't have an accent, because I lived there for like 3 years tops, and then moved to Phoenix. My dad got a job out in Phoenix, so that's where I know, a lot of, my Phoenix friends and stuff like that. And after, like, 8 years or so, or maybe a little less, my parents divorced, which, it's very common these days, so I don't want oh, I'm sorry. It's whatever. They didn't, it happens.
It didn't work.
So I went with my mom to Northern California where, her side of the family lived. And it was a little rough at that time because, money was really tight. Like, to be honest, my dad makes good money. He's always made good money. He's a software engineer. Moving out there was rough because it took, like, all my mom's resources. And I remember we lived with my grandparents for a while, and they had a little trailer up in the middle of nowhere in a, what's it called, mountain ranch, Northern California. And for, like, 2 weeks, I remember sleeping in a tent outside.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, I was a kid, and I look back on it now, like, oh, it wasn't that bad, but it was, interesting to think. It's interesting to think about and reflect. You're staying with family, but you're living in a tent.
How old were you
It was
then?
basically homeless. 8 or 9, if I remember correctly, yeah. And hung out with my cousins a lot. When we lived in Northern California, I moved around a lot. I think I went to 3 or 4 elementary schools before I went to middle school. So obviously, went to one middle school because there was only one middle school up in that area, and then I went to 3 different high schools. Even before the military, I moved around a lot. I ended up in Washington, Vancouver, Washington, and another little small dinky town in Washington. And then I ended up moving back to Northern California. My stepdad, his mom was sick. So we moved back to California. And I finished out in that same local area that I started out in California.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so little rural town, nowhere, like middle of nowhere. I couldn't wait to get out of there. Which my parents, my mom anyway, they're like, oh, we're never moved back to the city, but I was bored out of my mind, so I felt kind of stuck.
Yeah.
And what do? I mean, you either sit there and take it or you make a change. So for me, I've learned in my life, like, if I want to change something, I have to force the change and put myself into a position to where it's like, you can't back out of it, So what did I do? I went big. I joined the Marine Corps. So
Wow.
Yeah, to get out of that town, instead of going to college, which I could have done, but if I'm being honest, my senior year, I started playing a lot of rock bands. My grades started to slip. Up until, my sophomore year, I had straight A's pretty much. So, but I'm like, what, I'm fed up. I kind of want to change of pace. So I joined the Marines, went off to boot camp, did all that stuff. I was in the Marines for a total of 6 years. I signed a reserve contract initially, but I did spend a good amount of time, like, on orders, because I got, my unit got mobilized for Operation Enduring Freedom.
Oh.
So I got to go around and do some cool stuff, learn some cool things. A lot of good experiences. I made a lot of really good friends, and who knows, maybe some of them will actually see this. And
Maybe.
be like, oh,
Yeah, I remember him.
but yeah.
If you do remember him, I'd like to hear the behind-the-scenes stories, please.
Oh, God. Yeah, well, they'll tell you about how we all used to get wasted in the barracks off of Blue Moon, and now I can't drink Blue Moon or Shock Top anymore because I got sick off it too many times.
Really?
Yeah, it was rough. I mean, I do remember a story. There was a McDonald's when we were stationed in Miramar. There was a McDonald's across the street from our barracks, and we used to go in there. It was 24 hours, so we go there at like 2 a.m. Just drunk, lit, whatever.
Off, yeah.
And we go in there, and we started ordering something we would call the McGangbang. Yeah, so that's when you take a double cheeseburger, and you take the chicken patty and put it in between the two beef patties on the double cheeseburger.
Did you tell me about that before?
I think I did.
You did, right? Yeah, because I remember that. I was like, as you said that, I was like, that's either a game I played or he told me about this before.
Wow. But yeah, so we...
Okay, wait, Pepe, so people can hear it. Tell them again, what is the...
Yeah, so a McGangbang, at least that's what we were calling it. You take a double cheeseburger, and the chicken sandwich, you take the chicken patty and put it in between the two beef patties and the double cheeseburger. And it is delicious, especially if you're a little toasted. But we went through and ordered it enough to where we just go in and be like, hey, can we get like 20 McGangbangs? And they would just do it.
Yeah, here they come.
I don't recommend going to a different McDonald's
and saying that.
Yeah, this was like on a military base. They're used to all sorts of like dumb crap we used to do. So,
can I ask you about the military? Like, is it safe to say that was kind of like, okay, I've been stuck in this position for so long, with like family and moving, and this is going to give me the opportunity to move around on my own terms, per se?
Yeah.
Because you're still under the military now.
Well, yeah. But yeah, sort of. So I've been kind of doing the same thing, and, I was young. I signed at 18. Excuse me. I signed at 18, but, I'd been doing the same thing and kind of like at the will of your family, you go where they go. I'm like, you know what, I kind of want to start my own thing, do my own thing, travel around a little bit more, and the military was like the best way to do that, and also have a job, get a lot of experience. Like, I got a lot of experience doing, the variety of, like, I had 2 official jobs, and then I also, for a few months, I was with the military police on Camp Pendleton, helping them out too. So, I got a lot of skills, not just for, like, on the military side, but a lot of these skills that I, transfer over, especially to what I do now, project management for this logistics company, because when I was with the military police and my primary job was motor transport as a driver, but I was also, at my last unit, the motor T chief, so I was in charge of, for a while anyway, I was in charge of, planning the convoys and, making sure everything, got done to get the mission accomplished. And you have to, manage people, manage your time, be able to, talk to people and communicate clearly. And I do that stuff every day, at my current job. And it's stuff that I kind of honed in the military. And it's kind of easier, I feel like, in the military because you're kind of all friends, you're all the same, even if the ranks are a little different. It's easier to talk to people, but it was a good, like, level up,
right?
And then now I can do it. I do it without a second thought for the most part. I'm arranging conference calls, managing crews, stuff like that, and yeah. So a lot of the skills I got in the military, I use in my everyday life, and I'm really thankful for it. And honestly, despite some of the stuff some of the negative stuff, like living in a tent, for example, when I was a kid, and after the military, I know we talked about this briefly, and I'll touch about it a little bit more, but, a little depression, like some depression, and another, feeling of just being stuck, kind of lost. Despite all that, where I am now, I feel like I've led a fairly charmed life. And I'm very thankful for all the opportunities because, honestly, not everyone gets the opportunities. And sure, some of these opportunities I've actually, if I look at it, I've kind of made for myself.
Right.
And in the military, like if you want to join the military, pretty much everybody, I know we talked about you wanted to do that as well. Pretty much everybody can at least try to do it. It's an opportunity that's open to everybody as long as, you can meet the requirements or whatever. And unfortunately, sometimes, because of, a medical issue or something like that, I know plenty of people who, unfortunately, despite what they really wanted, couldn't do it, and it was a goal that they had.
Right.
So that's unfortunate, but some of these, opportunities can be a chance, kind of like how we just randomly met in Houston, or it's stuff you can, make yourself. Lately I've been making a point to kind of get to know everybody I meet, or at least try to, because you never know who you meet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Exhibit A.
Yeah.
So you never know who you meet, and it can lead to a lot of opportunities. So after the military, I moved back to, not after. I went back to reserve status, and I moved to Phoenix because most of my family ended up moving back there anyway.
Okay.
So I was in Phoenix. This was the last couple of years of my contract. I was on a reserve, so that means one weekend a month, and then that allowed me to have a day job and stuff like that. But for a while, it was, I sunk a little low there for a minute because there was a period when, I was unemployed. I was living with my mom. I didn't have any direction. I didn't know what I was doing, where I was going, and it was sad. It made me sad. It made my parents sad. And I remember, even some of my friends that knew me well enough, because I've always been the, when I'm not alone, I'm like, oh yeah, joking around, upbeat and stuff. So I felt like I hide it. I feel like I hide
your emotions,
that stuff pretty well, especially sadness, whatever. And I felt like I did. But people who know you very well, your family, right. And there was a couple of my friends, they pick up on the subtle cues. And I remember something that I still think about this occasionally resonated with me. A really good friend of mine. I won't say his name, but he still lives out there in, at least last I checked, he lived out there in North Arizona. He said to me, we were leaving drill, our weekend drill thing, and he's like, dude, I'm tired of seeing you so sad. And I'm like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
Right.
I'm not sad. He's like, no, come on, dude, I can tell. And what can I do? What can we do? Because it's disheartening to see such a good friend of mine be so down,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, shit, sorry.
It's an adult show.
Yeah. I was like, damn, that hit me because, I expect it from, my mom, stuff like that. And my parents, had said stuff like that to me before, but, they're my parents, so I felt like it was obligatory almost. But coming from some of my good friends, I was kind of taken aback. So, and it made me kind of sit there and reevaluate a little bit. I'm like, you know what? I need to get my shit together. And it gave me a little bit of a push. And if you don't have the willpower to do it, getting over obstacles is part willpower, part, outside influence. And, depending on who you are, those ratios will depend.
Right. So
that was kind of the push I needed to get going. And I ended up getting a job. I was working, at a warehouse. It wasn't anything crazy, but I started feeling better. It was a minimum wage job, but I was making money. My bills weren't that high. And I worked with some interesting people. One of them, we just call him E. Let's call him E. That's what he goes by.
Hey.
I worked there at that place for about a year. And after a couple months, me and E worked in the same section in this warehouse. We got to know each other a little bit, and he started telling me about what he did, in his off time. And it was, I'm pretty sure I told you about this, it was the music TV show. Him and his business partner were putting together. And I'm like, dude, that's awesome. And he told me about some of the struggles he's gone through, trying to run the business and stuff like that. Because it had been a 2-year struggle for them to even get where they are. Mm-hmm. And, they're still putting together the set and stuff. And we were just talking one day, and he's like, you know what? We need to go buy a bunch of audio equipment and stuff to, for the set in the studio and the control room. Do you want to help us pick it out? Because I had told him about, my brother, my brother puts all of us to shame. He has 4 degrees and a doctorate. And but a couple of his degrees, he went to community college when he was, in his early 20s and got a couple degrees in, like, audio production, sound design, stuff like that. So I told him about my brother and how, we would record music and stuff growing up. And he's like, hey, would you and your brother be willing to help us, pick some stuff out? And I'm like, yeah, I'll call him. We can meet, tomorrow or whatever, whatever it was. So we go to Guitar Center. We're there hanging out. We pick out all this stuff. We get it back to the studio. And then he's like, dude, we need someone to set this up and run it. Are you interested? And I was like, yes, I am. It wasn't even like a second thought. I was like, yeah, this is cool. So, yeah, I started helping out there. We're all unpaid, we're just like trying to set everything up. And it was just, I didn't even care about money. I had the day job, really, but it was just an opportunity and just like a change of pace, something that was really awesome and cool to be a part of. So we set up the microphones, the TVs, and all that stuff. I helped them paint the set and even build some of the shelves. Like, we had a bar in there behind like a bar counter and stuff. It was
wow.
Yeah, it was pretty cool, and it was great. I really enjoyed doing that. And that's like one of the things that I kind of wish I could still do after moving to LA. Was like, I miss working at the studio because it was fun. Now they moved to a new big studio, like a bigger studio. They got like a big team going. They're doing pretty good.
But it all started with you helping them.
I remember we'd be there till like midnight painting the set. Yeah, we're like, oh, we got an event. Like, they would be like, we have an investor coming in or whatever. Let's finish painting the set. So we'd be there till like midnight, 1 a.m. sometimes. Like.
Before we move too far, I have some questions if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Going back a little bit in your story, joining the military, you sign up. I mean, does everybody that signs up? Because let me do this camera because there's so much in your story. For those of you that know the show, I've told my military wish story. But for those of you that don't, when I was 18, I wanted to join the Army, and I was really, really ready for it. And I passed the test. At one point, I was really smart. I passed the test, and the recruiter was really after me, and he even came to my house to talk to me. And the only reason I didn't sign up was because this was like 1989, and I was afraid of being found out that I was gay.
Oh, yeah, the whole...
Yeah, so I was, that was the only thing and I was trying to tell him in not so many words during the house visit to let him know, like, what if?
Yeah.
And what if, so that he would give me an answer, and he never would, and I just got scared thinking, if somebody finds me out, I'm never...
Something bad would happen.
Yeah, and that's the only reason, and I don't have a lot of regrets in my life, but to this day, and I told you about that, to this day, my only regret is that I never even attempted to do it. I've always wanted to do it. So if anybody out there, I've always wanted to just go to boot camp. I just want to go, even if I throw up all over myself, even if I don't make it, but I just want to go and fulfill that part of my dream and feel like I did it. Anyway, that's my military story. So ever since then, I've always been very supportive of the military, and I have a lot of friends who are former military guys, and salute to everybody. So when you join, this is where I was going to ask. Like, I knew that if I joined, the possibility of going overseas or going into a war or something, did that ever cross your mind when you first joined?
Oh, of course, it crosses everybody's mind, especially if you're joining, the Marine Corps, because, we're first in a location, pretty much. So the Marine Corps is small, less than 200,000 personnel we're at, compared to the size of the Army. Army, I guess you call like an occupation force. The Marines are more like a strike force. So Marines go in, basically level the place or do whatever they need to do to take control, and then the Army comes in and occupies it.
Okay.
For the most part. And then the Navy, does Navy stuff, and then the Air Force does Air Force stuff.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that.
No.
I mean the way you're saying it.
You gotta, But yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it. And especially enlisting in the Marines, like, no matter what job you do. There's only a few jobs in the Marine Corps where you're like, if you sign up for that job, you're like, I'm not gonna, go overseas. But my job, Motor T, is like, what is it? What's the ratio? Like a third of the Marine Corps is like Motor T jobs. So, and they're needed in every unit in every location around the world. So, the chances of you getting mobilized and deploying as a Motor T operator or mechanic or whatever are good. They're pretty high, it's just like infantry, stuff like that. Maybe not quite as high as infantry, but yeah. So, and that's definitely a thought that crosses your mind. And I remember one of the things I was dealing with when I told my family, both sides, I was enlisting was my mom and my stepdad supported it fully. They wished it wasn't necessarily the Marine Corps because they knew, the chance of me actually deploying was a little greater than, say, like the Navy. Because my stepdad was in the Army, and he was in Germany for a few years, back in the 80s, before the wall came down. So he was out over there staring down, Russian Army guys on the other side of the Iron Curtain. And my mom's dad, my grandfather, he was in the Navy for 20 years. He was in Vietnam, stuff like that. So they were supportive of it. Military kind of ran about their families. My stepdad's dad was a Marine. His uncle was a Marine. They just kind of wished it was like the Navy or something, But yeah, so they were supportive of it. My dad and his girlfriend, not so much, because on my dad's, point of view, and same with his, girlfriend's point of view, the expectation, which I feel like is expected of most kids these days, or people in general. It's, the expectation is go to high school, finish high school, go to college, get a good job. And I feel like that's changing a little bit these days with the new generation. But, up until now, that's what it's been. That was what it was for my parents, and that's what they expected.
Right.
And I have two sisters and a brother. All of them went to school, to, varying degrees. My older sister has a bachelor's. My little sister has a bachelor's, and she's in grad school right now for a master's. My brother, 2 associates, a bachelor's, and a doctorate.
So you were the rebel.
I was the one, yeah. Me and my older sister, Christina, were always, kind of outside the mold. We didn't really necessarily fall into that expected category, but yeah, I was just like, you know what? Maybe I'll go to college later. I'm going to join the military. And my mom and my stepdad were like, okay, that's cool, My dad and his girlfriend were like, that's a bad idea, and I don't want you to do that. And I remember this also really stuck with me was basically the long and short of it was they told me, we don't want to see you throw your life away. And I didn't feel like I was throwing my life away at all. I thought I was doing something good for myself, good for, you feel like it's good for the country, all the other people out there, just trying to do something good.
Right.
And I'm like, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm doing it anyway, So a little rebellious, but it didn't really sink in for them until I actually left. And then finally, basically I forced them to accept it.
But you really didn't need anybody's approval.
No, I didn't need any approval.
You just wanted the blessing, per se?
Yeah, it was disappointing that they didn't agree with or didn't support what I wanted to do. But in the end, they're like, you know what? He's going to do what he wants to do anyway, so you might as well just go with it, Yeah. So, and that's kind of how it is now. Because I'll talk to my dad or something like that, and I'll be like, yeah, no, I'm just, planning on doing this. I'm trying to start, up the business. He's like, okay, well, hey, let me know how it goes, And it's not like, he's still like, well, be careful, make sure you're cautious and stuff. But it's not like, I don't think you should do that. Don't do that. Generally, he's like, okay, well, I think he's accepted that I'm going to have to fail sometimes to learn my lesson.
One of the things that I've talked to in therapy and with other people is the whole idea of we talked about suicide. I don't not that I don't believe in suicide, because people obviously do it, but I don't think it's for me. I think I'm too adorable to commit suicide. And I tell people, if AIDS and cancer didn't do it, how do I think that I'm going to be able to do it? Like, like my body was like, fuck you, AIDS, fuck you, cancer. So if I try to kill myself, my body's like, really?
Come on, dude. Like, nature tried twice.
Yeah. Take your rat poison and probably just give me diarrhea or something. And when you have an ostomy, you don't want diarrhea.
Ooh.
But sorry, that was a shitty joke. See what I did there? I have learned, and again, before listening, I'm like, really? I'm like, yeah. I've learned that at this point, I have a baseline. I have a new baseline. Like people, normal people are like 0, right in the middle. My baseline is like right below 0, like a -10. That's my baseline. I'm always going to be on this constant depressive mode, but I survive well there. I know it there. That's good for me. Like I can laugh and go up above the 0.
Yeah.
But I don't expect to be like Santa Claus happy.
Yeah, and I think that is impossible, and people who portray themselves as such are just fake, because you can't, like, me, when I'm alone, like, I'll laugh at dumb stuff I do sometimes, but when I'm alone, I'm usually just serious, kind of just, like, somber, even, like, I'll be working and stuff, like, it doesn't really affect my motivation anymore, because I've been able to overcome that, and I guess we can talk about that.
Do you find that being alone is not as difficult as for other people?
Being alone is not difficult for me. Like, I'm fine
me
being
either.
alone. Yeah. I can see where people would have concerns, back when I was obviously depressed and stuff like that. And that's why, my family necessarily wouldn't try not to leave me alone too much, and my friends would always be like, hey, let's hang out and stuff like that. But yeah, now, honestly, I have no problems being alone. I mean, I think I've been alone. I have sat for my dad one time when he went out of town for work, and I stayed at home. I didn't see another person for like 3 days, and I was fine with it. I mean, it's weird because you start talking to yourself after a couple of days, but no, I don't have any problems.
I love talking to myself.
Yeah.
I make so much sense when I'm alone.
You just
and
start
I'm
like
always
making
right.
weird noises.
And I'm always right.
Yeah. I do think there are some people who they have trouble being alone just because I know a couple people who are definitely like, they don't like being alone.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm not sure. It's hard for me to identify with that because I am totally cool with it. Like, if there's people there or if there's not people there, sometimes I just want to be left alone, but I'm totally cool with it. And I feel for them not wanting to be alone, but I don't necessarily know what that feels like. It's like having a high degree of anxiety. Like,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
Do you not equate alone with loneliness?
No, I do not. No. And I feel like that is a common error that people make in their mindset. They're like, I'm alone, therefore I'm lonely.
Yeah.
No, you can be alone and live alone and still have plenty of people in your life and, fulfillment, whatever, so you're not feeling lonely. Being alone is definitely, to me, does not equate to loneliness.
By the way, we're going overtime. Is that cool with you?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
All right, cool.
I didn't know the time limit.
Yeah, well, usually it's an hour, but we're into the third 30-minute section, so I'm good. I mean, I'm enjoying it. For those of you listening still, I am speaking with former military project manager and founder of his own company, Eric Odgear. We've been talking about military life, a little bit about depression. We didn't stick with that too long because it's kind of sad.
But
yeah, we told a couple of butt jokes now, and that's no shit. And looking at you, if you looked at yourself 10 years ago and now, what do you think the biggest change has been?
That's interesting question, actually, because when I was 16...
oh, yeah, for those of you listening, he's only 26.
26. Yeah. So when I was 16, I wasn't really... Honestly, I wasn't thinking about my life after high school at all. So I had no idea where I was going to be. But if I saw where I was, if I was 16, I was watching a TV, and I saw my life now, like an episode sitcom of my life now, I'd be like, you know what? That's pretty cool. Like, he's got a lot of experience, both positive and negative in a lot of things. In a variety of industries. He's, got an interesting job that he likes, or me, I guess I like. And he's doing other stuff that he enjoys and trying to, make some kind of a difference. And I think I would be looking forward to it if I was 16, because I certainly didn't expect it to be here ever. Not even 2 years ago. Yeah, because a couple years ago, I was still living in Phoenix, and we talked about this, I believe, in Houston, not so much last time we met. Before I moved to LA, back in 2016, like the summer, before that I was a chauffeur. And so it was after the warehouse job. I was still doing stuff with the studio, but I had to move out of my apartment because it was too expensive, so I moved in with one of my friends in his house. Awesome dude. Love that guy. But yeah, I was kind of like, I felt like I was taking a step back because, I was still happy with the studio and all that stuff. That was fun. I ended up getting this job, it was a private jet company, but I was a chauffeur. So I just drive around rich people. And, there was some perks to it and stuff. I worked nights. I've worked a lot of nights. And I'm a night person, so it kind of worked out. But I started feeling that familiar feeling of being, stuck again. And I started kind of hitting that low point, started creeping back up. And I was living with a really awesome dude, and we would do stuff. When he was around, we'd go do one of our favorite things to do. John, if you're watching this, or if you ever end up seeing this, shout out to John, because I'm still working on our project. So, no, one of our favorite things to do was go to. I lived in Chandler with him, and we would go to downtown Chandler, Arizona. There was a couple of restaurants, Vintage 95, which was like a wine lounge bar, and then next door is a place called the Brickyard, which was like another kind of like similar establishment. And we go there and just sit there for like hours and have, some wine and like work on our, whatever kind of like zany project we had going on. And it was cool. Like, that stuff was fun, but at the same time, I started feeling like, I wasn't going anywhere anymore. Because I went from living alone in my own apartment to living with someone else again. And I had another just minimum, well, it was slightly above minimum wage job.
But a job with no ladder to climb.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, I was a driver, and, the benefits were pretty good, and I wasn't making minimum wage, but, yeah, I wasn't going to be getting promoted to anything higher that I could see in the near future. Studio was still going good, but we were at a point where now it was like investment kind of thing. We're just kind of waiting for, investments and stuff like that. So, money to come in pretty much. So, we had, filmed, episode 1, the pilot episode and stuff like that. But, so, my current girlfriend, whom I live with out here in Los Angeles, she was getting ready to graduate college, and, she lived out here, already. And I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm feeling kind of stuck. I need a change of pace. So I did what I did with the military, and I forced a change, something that I couldn't easily, retract. So I just picked everything up, moved to LA. And it was a bit of a struggle at first, because, it is more expensive out here, but you pay for what you get. in general. And yeah, the first few months were pretty tight, a little tough, and then it started getting easier as I got, my first initial job, and then I got picked up by this company, and now it's like I'm good, golden. Me and Garcia have been working on our our business and our nonprofit stuff like that, and so now I've kind of made it a habit to say I started going to school as well in October.
Oh,
yeah. So that was a big step for me because I'd always taken a stance like, oh, I don't need to go to school. If I want to learn something, I'll learn it myself. Honestly, it was kind of like a bit of a fear because I'm like, I don't think I'm going to mesh well like on a campus with like a 25-year-old on campus with all these 18-year-olds and stuff. Like I wasn't sure how I'd feel about it. I mean, I'm more than happy about, to do higher education, but I travel a lot for work, so I go to school online at a private university, and it's an accelerated course, so I'll have my bachelor's in 2.5 years.
nice.
So I've got about 2 years left, because I started in October. So, and cyber network security, which is something I've always been interested in, cryptography, stuff like that. So I've kind of made it a habit, so to speak, to breaking the monotony, because monotony, I think, is what traps a lot of people. You get comfortable, things get monotonous, you get bored, and then you feel stuck. And you have to have a little bit of willpower and a slight push from other people.
So how did you, because we 47, I still struggle with that sometimes. How did you confront your fear and enforce the change?
So that's a good question. And it's still, some things still make me nervous and some things I'm still not sure about. But especially, it started with just the snap decision to join the military, because I've learned some of the best things that I've gotten and the best experiences I've got out of my life were decisions somewhat of impulse. Not super rash.
Right.
But,
there
something
that
that's like,
feeling?
you know what, let's just take the jump. That's kind of like how this, this business is and stuff like that. It's like, is there stuff that could go wrong? Yeah. But, I mean,
that's true for everything.
What's going to happen if you don't do it? You're not going to do something you want to do and you want to try. So, to me, I basically, a lot of stuff comes down to perspective to me. So, a lot of it is like people fear the negative aspects, whereas I've tried to change my mindset. It's hard sometimes. You got to force it a little bit, and I've kind of, over the years, I've learned to be like, yeah, this could go wrong, but what about if it goes right?
Right.
And to me, and all these snap decisions, or these somewhat what my family would think are impulsive decisions, the benefits outweigh the negative aspect of it. Because when I got up and moved to LA, I'm like, what's the worst that could happen? Oh, it doesn't work out. I have to come back to Phoenix, where my family is.
Right.
Oh well.
Right.
I'm out some money, but I gave it a shot. And what would happen if it went good? And here I sit. I wasn't sure exactly how it would go good. I knew, a couple people out here had a couple connections, and that's kind of how I got into the industry I'm in, which is logistics. But, and it turned out well. It wasn't immediate, and it took a little bit of effort and, just sticking with it for a few months, but
You just
sticking with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to put in some effort and kind of definitely have to do it for more than a week.
Because people would make changes like, I'm here.
Yeah.
Change it.
And that's the hardest part to keeping up with anything. So I actually did, in my first term at school, we were doing like a peer discussion kind of thing. I mentioned building and forming habits. I can't remember exactly what the discussion was about, but basically it's a loop in your brain. It's cause, reaction, and reward, something like that. So when you have a habit, you build a habit because there's some kind of reward to the stimulus. So what you have to do is, what I've tried to do is, when I make these decisions, the reward is like a feeling of accomplishment regardless of if I don't quite make it or not, you know? Either I make it or I don't, but either way there's a feeling of you tried. And that's an accomplishment within itself. Mm-hmm. So, and it was hard for me to try and like get that mindset down because it takes a good amount of willpower, and you know people do sometimes need to push you in the right direction.
Yeah, and sometimes we don't see that we're going in the wrong direction.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have those friends GPS you and go,
yes, turn right.
What the hell?
Yeah.
All right. So we're at the point now where we send some words of wisdom out to the listeners. And the audience, what words of wisdom would you share?
Well, something I've been thinking about a lot lately is actually, and this solidified more in my mind. I was just in Washington, D.C. for work last week. I got back on over the weekend. And I was walking around looking at the monuments and stuff, and it made me think about this more. So basically, kind of something I live by is remember the past and learn from it, but don't live in it. Because that's a trap as well. If you're living in the past, you're not going to be moving forward. So take the lessons and use that to take your steps forward. And I guess that would be my words of wisdom.
That's pretty cool. Well, yeah, and I think I've met a lot of people doing this show, and it's hard sometimes to find young people who have taken charge. And sometimes it's easy to find older people who can't take charge.
Seems to vary, yeah.
Yeah. For those of you listening for or watching the video, things will happen in your life. If you're young, things are going to happen no matter how much you plan, how much you label or list things in detail and time it. The universe is going to find a way to look at your list and go, I'm about to make you my bitch.
Yeah.
And things are not going to work out. And you have to, like, all of a sudden, it's like you're on the road and with your GPS, and it doesn't tell you that there's a road closure.
Yeah.
And you just have to find...
Gotta recalculate.
How to do it. And get there. No matter how much the GPS says, go back. You have to follow your gut and do what feels best for you. Remember that in the end, it's about your happiness. It's about your comfort level. And you shouldn't adjust it for too much for a partner. You shouldn't adjust it too much for your kids, because partners can leave and kids will grow up and move away. And in the end, it's you and your happiness that have to live with each other. And look, you can force that change. And I'm gonna use that. That looks, I like that term, force the change.
Yeah, that's really what it is. You're in control of your own life, your own destiny, whatever you want to call it. So sitting there and letting stuff pass you by, going with the flow. People like to say go with the flow, which in some cases that's good. But if you always go with the flow, chances are you're not gonna achieve some of the bigger things you want to. You got to break the flow.
We're down to the last several minutes. We talked about this the last time we saw each other. Which, by the way, Garcia was texting me while we were talking. Yeah, because I told him you were here. I didn't read the whole message, but he said
some snide comments.
Yeah, he said that there's information that only he's privy to, or that you're privy to, so that you weren't allowed to share.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we're going to talk about you anyway, Garcia, so shut the hell up.
Now he's talking about our business ventures and stuff. So.
You little... when I met Garcia for the first time... yes, I'm going to talk about you, Garcia. When I met Garcia for the first time, we met at a coffee shop near Eric's place, and we were waiting. They kept me waiting because Garcia was getting ready. And then he shows up all in black. And I'm like, this is what I waited for, like for him to be all in black. And then he had glitter fingernails.
Oh yeah, that was the weekend of the Women's March down there in LA. So my girlfriend and all her friends over.
Garcia shows up all in black, which like really it took you 30 minutes to think about wearing all black.
He had to wash his ass.
And then I wasn't gonna sleep with him. We were just
I was more of a figure of speech.
He was just having coffee. So now the truth comes out. Jesus Christ.
Sorry, bro.
Jesus Christ, that's all I gotta say. Anyway, but I had to give him a hard time, and so I'm hoping to have him on the show next and get over it. He couldn't make it this time, but just so you know, we're thinking about you in nasty ways. And
always.
I know you don't want to talk about your future projects because
we can. It's just I got to be vague about it.
No, we'll talk about those when you get them more going. I want you guys to come back together and talk about. Let's just say that these guys have some really cool things coming up for them. So I wish you all the best in that.
Thank you.
Where are you now? If you had to describe yourself, you're a project manager and an analyst. If you had to write down an analytical report about you in a couple of sentences, what would you write?
An analytical report about me. That's a bit of a doozy of a question. Well, at this point in my life, I'd actually say motivated, or driven, which wouldn't always be the case. I would say I'm pretty driven these days. I'm incessantly curious because every time I see something that's like cool or even kind of cool, I'm just like, oh, what's that? I want to learn about it, so I'll look it up. I do a lot of research. I try and read a lot. I guess driven and incessantly curious.
Nice.
But at the same time, I can be kind of a douche. So.
Yeah, we all can. Most military people that I know can be douches. So.
Accurate.
Yes.
Accurate.
Yes, but I think that you've earned it. You've earned it. I think you've earned it.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, from a civilian to thank you, I think you've earned it. You could be a little bit.
Thank you.
After everything that I've been in my own personal life for, I can be a dick, and I'll tell people when you have cancer up your ass, you come back and
there's a certain amount of dickishness you're allowed.
Come back and tell me, dickishness in the ass. I see where that went.
That was unintentional as well.
All right, but for everybody listening, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. We went a little over, but I think you guys will appreciate it. And we were talking to Eric Odgear. He's a former military Marine, project manager, and founder and adventurer. We'll see. We'll hear some of his new ventures once they get up and going. I'll tell you this much: I know a little bit about it, and you don't. But I'm very excited to see where you go, and I'm so grateful that the universe found it in its wisdom to connect us that night.
Me too. Yeah.
You guys are hilarious, and I had a great time. And thank you for coming all the way out to Laguna.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot. This has been awesome. I've never really done anything like this before, so I kind of wanted to jump at the chance just to kind of try something new, sit here and have a conversation with a good dude. So
I like
fun.
I like being the first for many people. It brings me pleasure.
There's a double entendre there.
What? This is the first time you do a podcast. I think it's my first time. Your first time. I've had military boys on my couch before, so it's all good.
Hey, man, I thought you said you hadn't done that.
I mean, I clicked on the links while I was on the couch. That's what I was trying to say. Okay. Yes. What is this? This is my show. I ask the questions.
Fair enough.
For those of you listening, thank you again for listening. Thank you, Eric, for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
We're not done with this conversation. There's a lot more to be said. I think we only scraped the iceberg of his life, but I'm excited, and I'm glad that I made a new friend, and I welcome you back. For those of you listening, thank you for paying attention. Go check us out. Thank you to my producer, Mr. Kevin Moyers, for all his help and support. Thank you, sir. Check us out at abnormalentertainment.com. Check me out at Little Mexican Productions on Facebook or Put It Together Podcast. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter at Little Mexican. For any information or you want to be on the show, just reach out, send a message, and I'll be happy to talk to you. For now, this is Daniel Garza saying, hey, put it together.
This is how I put it together.
This is how I put it together.
This is how I put it together.
Subscribe to Put It Together on iTunes, Stitcher, and at abnormalentertainment.com/putittogether. Find Put It Together on Facebook and tweet Daniel at Lil Messican, LILMESICAN. And for more podcasts, comics, books, movies, and more, head to abnormalentertainment.com.
You've been listening to the Abnormal Entertainment Network.